The test begins. The morning fog clung to the naval training facility like a shroud, muffling the sounds of boots on pavement as recruits assembled for another day of grueling preparation. Sergeant Zahra Hassan stood at attention in the formation, her dark eyes fixed straight ahead, embodying the discipline that had been carved into her character since childhood. At 24, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who understood that true strength often wore the mask of humility. Growing up as the daughter of retired Major General Omar Hassan, Zahra had learned early that military service was about more than following orders. It was about integrity, honor, and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Her father's words echoed in her memory as she faced the rigorous elite Naval Special Operations training program. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Zahra. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid. Commander Blake Morrison strode before the formation, his presence commanding immediate attention. At first glance, he appeared to be the epitome of military professionalism: polished uniform, authoritative bearing, and a reputation for producing elite operators. But Zahra had learned to read between the lines, a skill honed through years of observing her father's interactions with both honorable soldiers and those who fell short of the military's highest standards. "Today we separate the wheat from the chaff," Morrison announced, his voice carrying across the training grounds. "Some of you think you belong here because you passed a few tests. You're wrong. This program will strip away every pretense and reveal who you really are." His eyes swept the formation and lingered on Zahra longer than necessary, something she noted but didn't react to. She had experienced skepticism before. Being one of the few women in elite programs often drew unwanted attention. But this felt different, more personal, though she couldn't yet understand why. During the first evolution, an obstacle course designed to test both physical capabilities and mental resilience, Morrison's commentary became increasingly pointed in her direction. While other recruits received standard corrections and encouragement, his remarks toward Zahra carried an edge that seemed designed to provoke rather than instruct. "Hassan, your form is sloppy. Maybe Daddy's influence got you this far, but it won't carry you through my program," he called out as she navigated a rope climb flawlessly. Zahra maintained her focus, completing each obstacle with the precision and determination that had earned her place in the program. She noticed Corporal Jake Rivera, a fellow recruit from Colorado, glancing her way during Morrison's comments, but she couldn't read his expression behind the professional mask all recruits wore during training. Jake Rivera had initially dismissed most of his fellow recruits as competition to be outperformed rather than potential allies. Coming from a background where he'd had to fight for everything he'd achieved, trust didn't come easily. But something about the instructor's treatment of Hassan struck him as wrong, even if he wasn't ready to act on that instinct yet. As the day progressed, Morrison's behavior became a pattern that Zahra recognized needed documentation, though she hoped it would resolve itself through professional channels before requiring intervention. Lines crossed. The second week of training brought intensified scrutiny that went far beyond professional instruction. Commander Morrison's targeting of Zahra had evolved from pointed comments to what could only be described as systematic harassment disguised as rigorous training standards. During hand-to-hand combat exercises, he paired her exclusively with the largest male recruits, claiming it was realistic preparation, while other female recruits received more varied partnerships. Zahra maintained her composure through each calculated provocation, her father's training serving her well. She had learned early that documentation was a soldier's best defense against injustice, so she began keeping detailed records in a small notebook she carried everywhere. Each incident was recorded with military precision: time, location, witnesses present, and exact words spoken. Her handwriting remained steady even as her frustration grew. "Hassan, you're holding everyone back," Morrison announced during a timed run, despite her finishing in the top 3. "Maybe you should consider a desk job more suited to your limitations." The pause before the final word was deliberate, loaded with implications that had nothing to do with her physical capabilities. Jake Rivera found himself paying closer attention to these exchanges, his initial indifference gradually shifting to something that felt uncomfortably like concern. He had served 2 tours overseas before applying for this program, and he recognized the difference between tough instruction and personal vendetta. Morrison's behavior toward Hassan crossed lines that should never be crossed, regardless of the military's traditionally harsh training methods. During evening study sessions, Jake noticed Zahra writing in her notebook with the same focused attention she brought to memorizing tactical procedures. When she caught him looking, their eyes met briefly, a moment of mutual recognition that something unspoken was building between them, though neither was ready to address it directly. The other recruits' reactions varied dramatically. Some, like Petty Officer Third Class Mike Chen, seemed oblivious to the pattern, focused entirely on their own performance and survival in the program. Others, including Seaman Rebecca Torres, noticed but remained silent, afraid that speaking up might make them targets as well. The unspoken rule in elite programs was simple: keep your head down and don't make waves. But Jake's conscience wouldn't let him maintain that comfortable distance. During a particularly brutal evaluation where Morrison criticized every aspect of Zara's performance despite her flawless execution, Jake found himself stepping slightly closer to her position in formation. It wasn't much, just a subtle shift that said you're not alone, but Zara noticed. The breaking point came during a navigation exercise in the woods surrounding the facility. Morrison had deliberately given Zara incorrect coordinates while providing accurate ones to everyone else, then berated her publicly when she arrived at the wrong location. Her jaw tightened as she accepted the verbal assault without defending herself, knowing that any response would only escalate the situation. That evening, as recruits cleaned weapons in the armory, Jake made his decision. He approached Zara's workstation, ostensibly to borrow cleaning supplies, and spoke quietly without looking directly at her. "I see what's happening," he said, his voice barely audible above the mechanical sounds of weapon maintenance. "You're not imagining it, and you're not alone." Zara's hands never paused in their methodical cleaning, but her shoulders relaxed slightly, the first sign of relief she'd shown in weeks. "I'm documenting everything," she replied softly. "My father taught me that truth has a way of surfacing when it's properly recorded." "Good," Jake said, moving back to his own station. "When you're ready to do something about it, count me in." Their alliance was born in that moment, not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through the quiet recognition that some lines should never be crossed, and that standing up for what's right sometimes requires standing together. Neither knew that their partnership would soon be tested in ways that would forge bonds stronger than either had thought possible. Silent alliance. The partnership between Zara and Jake developed through a language of subtle gestures and shared understanding that spoke louder than words. During morning formations, Jake positioned himself where he could observe Morrison's interactions with Zara, his presence serving as a silent witness to behavior that thrived in isolation. When Morrison assigned Zara additional duties designed to exhaust her before evaluations, Jake found ways to assist without making it obvious, sharing his meal rations when she missed dinner, helping organize equipment so she could rest an extra 15 minutes. Their growing bond didn't go unnoticed by Morrison, whose tactics evolved to target their partnership directly. During team-building exercises, he deliberately separated them, pairing Zara with recruits who had been subtly encouraged to view her as a liability. But Jake's quiet support had given her renewed strength, and she performed with such competence that even her reluctant partners couldn't deny her capabilities. "Rivera, you're being influenced by dead weight," Morrison warned during a private moment after a particularly challenging swim qualification. "Elite operators don't have time for charity cases. Focus on your own performance, or you'll both wash out." Jake's response was measured but firm. "Sir, Sergeant Hassan's performance speaks for itself. She's earned her place here through merit, not favors." The respectful tone couldn't hide the steel beneath his words. Morrison's eyes narrowed, recognizing that his usual intimidation tactics weren't working on the Colorado native. Jake had seen enough combat to know the difference between legitimate authority and abuse of power, and his military bearing remained unshakable even under direct pressure. The instructor's frustration manifested in increasingly creative forms of harassment. He scheduled Zara for additional night watches that disrupted her sleep patterns, then criticized her for showing fatigue during morning exercises. He randomly selected her for uniform inspections that found fault with regulations she followed perfectly, issuing demerits that could accumulate into program dismissal. Through it all, Zara's documentation grew more detailed and damning. She recorded not just Morrison's words and actions, but also witness locations, his treatment of other recruits as contrast, and the impact on program morale. Her military upbringing had taught her that proper evidence could be more powerful than any weapon, and she was building a case with the precision of a professional investigation. Jake's support became more open as their trust deepened. During obstacle courses, he provided encouragement that was professional but unmistakably personal. "You've got this, Hassan. Show them what real strength looks like. When Morrison attempted to isolate her during team exercises, Jake found ways to include her in planning discussions, subtly demonstrating that her tactical insights were valuable. Their partnership faced its greatest test during a survival exercise in the wilderness. Morrison had arranged for Zara's equipment to be accidentally damaged, leaving her without essential gear for the 48-hour challenge. Jake discovered the sabotage during equipment check and made a decision that could have ended both their careers. "Take my backup gear," he said, pressing his secondary sleeping bag and water purification tablets into her hands. "That leaves you short," she protested, though her gratitude was evident in her eyes. "We succeed together or we fail together," he replied. "That's what partnership means." They spent the survival exercise working as a seamless team, sharing resources and covering each other's vulnerabilities with such natural coordination that other recruits began to notice. Their bond had evolved beyond mere alliance into something deeper, a connection forged through shared adversity and mutual respect that neither fully understood yet. When they returned from the field, both having passed the exercise despite Morrison's interference, their instructor's expression was thunderous. But other recruits had witnessed their teamwork, and whispers began circulating about the unfair treatment Zara had endured and Jake's unwavering loyalty. Unknown to them, one of those whispers had reached the right ears, and wheels were beginning to turn in the chain of command above Morrison's reach. The reckoning. The investigation began quietly, as most military inquiries do, with careful observation and discreet interviews. What started as whispered concerns from training staff who had noticed irregularities in Morrison's behavior quickly escalated when Zara's meticulously documented evidence was reviewed by the appropriate authorities. Her notebook, filled with dates, times, witnesses, and exact quotations, painted a picture of systematic harassment that could no longer be ignored or dismissed. Colonel Patricia Stone, the senior officer overseeing the elite Naval Special Operations training program, had built her career on maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct. When the evidence reached her desk, she immediately convened a review board consisting of 3 other respected SEAL colonels: Marcus Webb, a veteran of multiple combat deployments known for his fairness; David Torres, whose reputation for thorough investigation was legendary; and Dr. Sarah Chen, a military psychologist who specialized in identifying toxic leadership patterns. The review board's investigation was swift and comprehensive. They interviewed recruits individually, reviewed training records, and analyzed patterns in Morrison's evaluations that revealed his bias went far beyond Zara. Several other recruits, emboldened by the official inquiry, came forward with their own experiences of witnessing inappropriate conduct or feeling pressured to remain silent. Jake was among the first called to testify, and his account corroborated every detail in Zara's documentation. His reputation as a reliable soldier with combat experience gave weight to his observations, particularly his professional assessment that Morrison's behavior had no legitimate training purpose. "Sir, I've served under demanding instructors who pushed us to our limits," Jake told the board. "But what I witnessed was personal targeting designed to break down a qualified recruit for reasons that had nothing to do with her capabilities or commitment to the program." The board's interview with Zara was both thorough and respectful. Colonel Stone was particularly impressed by the young sergeant's composure and the quality of her documentation. Here was a soldier who had faced systematic harassment while maintaining her military bearing and professional standards. Exactly the kind of character the elite program was designed to identify and develop. "Why didn't you report this earlier, Sergeant?" Colonel Webb asked. "Sir, I hoped the situation would resolve through normal training progression," Zara replied honestly. "My father taught me that sometimes the right thing to do is endure hardship for the greater good. But when it became clear that the instructor's behavior was affecting program integrity, I knew documentation would be necessary." The board's confrontation with Morrison was less pleasant. Faced with overwhelming evidence and witness testimony, he attempted to justify his actions as enhanced training designed to identify recruits who couldn't handle pressure. The explanation crumbled under scrutiny, particularly when Colonel Torres pointed out that his methods violated multiple military regulations and professional standards. "Commander Morrison, effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as an instructor in this program," Colonel Stone announced. "A formal inquiry will determine appropriate disciplinary action. Your conduct has damaged the reputation of this institution and failed to meet the standards we demand from our leadership." Morrison's removal sent shockwaves through the training facility, but they were largely positive. Recruits who had remained silent began sharing their own observations, creating an atmosphere where professional conduct was reinforced rather than undermined. The program's reputation for excellence was preserved, but with a renewed emphasis on the values that made elite operators truly exceptional. For Zara and Jake, the investigation's conclusion brought validation but also uncertainty. They had stood up for what was right, but their partnership had been forged in adversity that was now ending. As they prepared to continue their training under new leadership, both wondered how their relationship would evolve in an environment where they could focus on excellence rather than survival. Foundations built. 6 months later, the elite Naval Special Operations training program had been transformed under new leadership that emphasized excellence through proper mentorship rather than intimidation. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, Morrison's replacement, brought decades of experience and a reputation for developing elite operators through challenging but fair methods. The program's reputation not only recovered but was enhanced by the changes implemented after the investigation. Zara and Jake had not just survived the rebuilt program, they had excelled in it. Their partnership, forged in adversity, proved even stronger when channeled toward positive goals. They consistently ranked among the top performers in every category, their teamwork becoming a model for other recruit partnerships. What had begun as mutual support during crisis had evolved into a professional and personal bond that impressed instructors and fellow students alike. The graduation ceremony was held on a crisp autumn morning, with families and senior officers gathered to witness the completion of one of the military's most demanding programs. Among the distinguished guests was retired Major General Omar Hassan, whose pride in his daughter was evident as he watched her receive not just her graduation certificate, but also a commendation for exceptional integrity under pressure. Jake received a similar commendation for his unwavering support of a fellow service member and his commitment to upholding military values. As they stood together during the ceremony, both realized that their partnership had become something neither had expected when they first met. A relationship built on shared values, mutual respect, and the kind of deep trust that could only be forged through facing challenges together. Colonel Stone addressed the graduating class with words that resonated particularly with Zara and Jake. True strength isn't measured by how well you perform when everything goes according to plan. It's measured by how you respond when faced with adversity, how you support your teammates when they're struggling, and whether you have the courage to do what's right even when it's difficult. After the ceremony, as families celebrated and new assignments were discussed, Zara and Jake found themselves walking together along the waterfront where they had completed so many training exercises. The conversation that had been building for months finally surfaced naturally. "I've been thinking about our next assignments," Jake said, his voice carrying the same quiet confidence that had supported her through the darkest days of their training. "There are opportunities for joint operations, partnerships between special operations teams." Zara smiled, understanding the deeper meaning behind his words. "My father always said that the best military partnerships extend beyond professional duty. They're built on trust, shared values, and the commitment to support each other through whatever challenges come next." "Is that what we have?" Jake asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "It's what we've built," Zara replied, her hand finding his. "Through everything we faced, we proved that we're stronger together than apart. That's true in combat, in service, and in life." Their relationship had been tested by fire and emerged not just intact but strengthened. As they looked toward their future assignments and the challenges ahead, both knew they would face them together, as partners in service, in life, and in the kind of love that is earned through standing up for each other when it matters most. The sun set over the training facility where they had discovered not just their own strength, but the power of two people committed to doing what's right, regardless of the cost. Their love story wasn't written in grand romantic gestures, but in the quiet moments of support, the shared commitment to excellence, and the unwavering trust that comes from knowing someone will stand beside you when the world seems determined to tear you down. In the end, they had not just completed elite military training, they had found the foundation for a lifetime partnership built on the strongest possible ground: shared values, proven loyalty, and the courage to face any challenge together.